Honourable Member for St Andrew.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I must say that whenever I hear the Honourable Member for St Philip South speak, I find the content of his presentation not to be very, but extremely distasteful. We were talking about the former Prime Minister Barrow, and Barrow liked to put things in their true perspective, even though sometimes he used language which was common to everybody and that everybody could understand. And the word nincompoop is one that he used to use. And for a political nincompoop who has only graced this house a few years ago and who contradicts himself when he states about his origins, he's sleeping in a bed with 3 boys and he doesn't like to pretend that he's more than anybody else. His content is something completely different. For him to refer to a distinguished member of this house and a man who served not only as Attorney General, but as a distinguished Chief Justice. And some of the jurists in Barbados would tell you that he's one of the best Chief Justices that we've ever had. But for him, as a former Attorney General, and there's certain ways that you do not treat colleagues, and for him to come to this house and refer to the Honourable Sir David Simmons as one David Simmons is totally disrespectful. But that is the Honourable Member for St Philip South. And when you listen to his presentation, it is fairly obvious. No, you agree with me, so you don't say anything. You agree with me. You agree with me. You keep quiet on this. But the Honourable Member, sorry.
Address the chair, please, Honourable Member.
Yeah, I'll address this. But it shows in his presentation that there's nothing in this budget, because all he has addressed is an attack, the member for St. Michael East, the member for St. Michael North East, and the members of the Barbados Labour Party. And he has not actually dealt with anything in the budget. And like the true nincompoop that he is, it has a term of endearment. No.
Honourable Member, I would ask you to refrain from insulting each other, please.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker.
And I'm not Mr. Speaker.
I earlier said that the former Prime Minister used to speak in terms that everybody could understand. Nincompoop is a newcomer to Parliament. And it's within that context that I'm calling him a nincompoop. Well, I'm calling him a nincompoop, political nincompoop. But he, the Honourable Member for St. Philip South, has come to this house and he has shown an ignorance of what transpired in the Ministry of the Civil Service. He states that many of the ministers in the previous Barbados Labour Party administration padded ministries with supporters. Now, and he says, or he said whether supporters or not. Madam Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, I recall even when I was a Minister of Government, which was before the Barbados Labour Party demitted office, and you wanted to appoint a simple general worker, you had to go through the civil service. You had to go through the civil service. I don't know if anything has changed. I don't know if anything has changed since 2008. So it is wrong and misleading to come to this house and speak in those terms. And as I said, it is obvious that there's nothing in this budget that he could speak about. So he has to speak in the language of the Minister of Finance and talk about the initiatives taken by government that have increased unemployment in the private sector. What are these initiatives? What are these initiatives? I mean, I am seeing all around me in my constituency, day after day, persons being sent home, persons being laid off. I mean, I am hearing about these unemployment figures being reduced. I don't know what sort of data they're using. But even statements like that are misleading. And when he speaks at attacks, the honourable member for St. Michael Northeast, the honourable member for St. Michael Northeast is only stating the facts as they are. The honourable Minister of Finance came to this house and he said that Sam Lords would start in September 2015. September 2015. This is almost September 2016. Sam Lords hasn't started. He said that Hyatt would start in August 2015. Hyatt hasn't started. He said he made no mention of Four Seasons. So if he's coming now and he's mentioning Four Seasons, well, it's obvious that we have to think of Four Seasons starting somewhere down the road, maybe after the Barbados Party comes to power. And no wonder I'm not surprised. This 15-story building that I heard about, I believe that has been deliberate because they probably anticipate that there would be an objection by town planning to the 15-story. So therefore, notwithstanding the fact that they have given a commitment, they know that 15-story building cannot come on stream in the time that they said it would come on stream. Because this is consistent with the presentations which the Minister of Finance has made in this house in the past. The Minister of Finance comes to this house. I am not calling him a liar, Madam Deputy Speaker. But it's reached a stage where if he comes year after year and he gives us certain undertakings and he has not been able to keep his undertakings, I keep repeating himself, Mr. Speaker. Obviously the people outside, the people of Barbados will call him a liar. We can't do it here. We cannot do it here, and I will not do it here. But the Minister of Finance gives commitments that he knows the government cannot satisfy. So we cannot accept these commitments as given by the Minister of Finance, and this is what the honourable member for St. Michael Northeast was stressing. And when the honourable member for St. Philip South comes in here and says that the member for St. Michael Northeast, who is the leader of this party, and we have never had a leader of the opposition on this side that has not given excellent replies to the budgetary proposals. When he says that she repeats everything every time she speaks, well, there's need to do it because you have to repeat it every time to remind them that they're doing, this government, what you're doing, for want of a better term, using the term of the member for St. Lucie, foolishness. If the honourable member for St. Michael Northeast did not emphasize the folly that was going on in the Ministry of Drainage, my friend, the honourable member for St. Michael Christchurch East, that project, the Cahill project, would not be abandoned. The Cahill project was abandoned because of the, you could call it mouthings, because of the emphasis that has been placed on the folly of government with respect to the Cahill project. So you don't attack the honourable member for St. Michael Northeast in those terms, because whenever we realize that you have fallen short, and to use a word that the honourable member for Philip South like to use all the time, that you are engaging on projects bordering on corruption, we will let the public of Barbados know. But Mr. Speaker, you know, I am from a constituency that has more than been neglected by this administration. And every time there's a budget, I hear the all same honourable member for Philip South talk about the member for St. Michael Northeast inviting people down. Hey, don't blame us if you can't get nobody to come down here. I heard two members of the opposition in the recreation room quarreling. How come we can't get nobody come down? They quarreling in the recreation room. How come you can't get nobody come down? And the Barbados Labour Party, Barbados Labour Party has all the people outside, even the news media. I mean, I don't agree with them when they said that the Prime Minister was booed. But if he was booed, he was booed. But that has nothing to do with the honourable member for St. Michael Northeast. Nothing to do. But we in St. Andrew, we look forward to the budget. There was a time I was in this house for so long now I can't remember. It isn't that I am old. I got in here early, very early, very early. And there was a time that people look forward. You did not have members. I was here that so long now. There was a time when you didn't had to invite you members on that side. They didn't have to invite anybody down here to see you. There was a time when I remember even somebody as photogenic as the honourable member for Minister of Education used to be surrounded with fans around the time of the budget. But where are these people now? Where have all the roses gone? Don't blame the Labour Party for that. It has something to do with the unpopularity of the government. Unpopularity, I mean, and the unpopularity is huge. As Donald Trump would say, it's huge. It's huge. And I believe that you all know one day coming soon what is going to happen. But Mr. Speaker, the people in St. Andrew, as I was saying, we have been hoping. I don't have to go into cabinet. You would know that. You would know that. But if you want me to come over there and help you, I could come over there and help you. Right? Mr. Speaker, the people of St. Andrew, every year we've been hoping that the Minister of Finance would institute measures to stimulate the productive sectors so that there could be growth in the economy, so that people could come back to work, and so that St. Andrew could be like how it was prior to 2008, no unemployment, and that's a fact. St. Andrew relied heavily on work in government agencies. We don't have any hotels. We don't have any businesses, any tremendous amount of businesses. And we don't have this lot of special, you don't remember for say Christchurch East could tell you that. We don't have this lot of pride that members would come and say, constituents would come and say, I want a job in any office. Because I had the experience of a lady coming to me wanting a job, and she says she drives a car and she wanted to work as a laborer. I said, I can't do that. Eventually, she insisted and she got a job, and I was driving along the road. I saw her car park, she went inside the road. That is the type of people we have in St. Andrew. And we rely a lot on the productive sectors to be stimulated. And during the last 8 years, nothing has happened in St. Andrew. Nothing has happened, and this St. Andrew is just like most of the constituencies in the north of Barbados. Now, Mr. Speaker, around this time of election, what I normally do, I normally, either on the night of the budget or the morning after the budget, I drive through my constituency, and whether I stay by Gamby's Bar, or I go down in Orange Hill, or I go down to the village inn in Belle Plaine, or I go by the Belle Plaine Snack It, or wherever, I go to get the pulse of the people with respect to the budget. And you know, this year is the only year that I didn't have to do that, because when, shortly after I left Parliament on Tuesday night, and that's the first time I've ever heard a budget on a Tuesday. Budget on a Tuesday. The first time we've ever had, it was the first, a budget during Olympics. We've never had a budget during, that's madness. Madness. But this gentleman called me, and I was a little surprised because he is a staunch member of the Democratic Labour Party. And I recall a very decent fellow. And I recall when he called me, he said he wanted to speak to me. He wanted to speak to me, and he asked if I could come to Payne. If I could come to St. Andrew, sorry. And I went down. Now, this is a man, as I said, he was a Democratic Party supporter. He's a self-employed contractor in the carpentry business. And I took notes when I went down. Don't drink, don't smoke, don't deal with drugs, as I know. And you all remember for Christchurch East know that we don't deal with those things in St. Andrew. Don't gamble. Christian man. And a man who people looked up to. And I went down, and when I got out, he said he needed help. He proceeded to relate, and I was writing. Now, this is a man, I said he was a self-employed small contractor, and in all appearances he was doing well. And he had a policy in Clico. He was an investor in the EFPA program. He had savings in the credit union, taking advantage of the credit facilities offered by government for income tax purposes. He took out mutual funds with the financial institutions. He was repaying the bank a loan. Every year he tried to do his repairs and improvements to his house in order to get that tax credit. And then he told me that for the last 3 years, things had gone a little downhill. His wife had been laid off. His wife was laid off. The jobs, private jobs had fallen to a point where he had to lay off his 2 workers. He had not paid his land taxes for over 5 years. His national insurance for his employees, for himself, was in arrears. And he was being sued by his 2 employers for severance. He said, "Mr. Payne, I want help from you." And I was taken aback because I don't know what help could he want from me. And this is a true story. I could give you the name. He said, "But I do not want any money." His own words, "I want you to help me get rid of these people." Those were his words. These people. Well, I don't know if these people are you. You would have to take to interpret what he said. He says a tax amnesty cannot help me. Sometimes I am so ashamed to take my wife to the supermarket. Here was a man that was doing well, and his savings, his income was decimated because of the government policies, the failure of the economy to grow as a result of the policies of the Democratic Labour Party, and the taxation measures of the honourable member for St. Michael Northwest. And Mr. Speaker, I had to reflect when I recognized the disconnect between the government and my constituent. I had already seen this disconnect with respect to the treatment of the people in White Hill. But you see, the people in White Hill, the rest of Barbados does not understand how bad this government is treating the people in White Hill. You have to go down there and see it for yourself. people living under a galvanized shed. Roads moving away. I mean, this is something that never happened. There was a time, and I say this government. When I say this government, I don't mean the Democratic Labour Party. Because there was a time when I was in opposition. When I first came to Parliament, I was in opposition. And there was a member for St. Lucie who was the Minister of Housing. And every time I called him with respect to a matter, he came immediately. I never had any problems. I never had any problems with housing. I never had problems with drainage. I never had any problems. I mean, that was a caring government. I said, this government has nothing to do with the Democratic Party. I mean, and I still keep close contact with members of the Democratic Labour Party. I go to lunch with them, and I repeat it very often, almost every week. And they are ashamed at the way how this government is treating the people of Barbados. And I recognize the disconnect. I also recognize that disconnect in the way how they have been treating Clico. It is the honourable member for St. Michael North East. I want the honourable member for St. Michael, for St. Philip South to know that it is the honourable member for St. Michael North East that brought to this Parliament the plight of the people in Clico. And not a word has been said about Clico apart from some passing reference. But I will get, if I get the opportunity, I will get to that. But what struck me, and it almost brought tears to my eyes, I was seeing from another angle when I analyzed the priorities of this government, the shift in their concerns, because they were now more concerned with extremely wealthy yacht owners. The plight of extremely wealthy yacht owners than the plight of the type of constituents. Because this man I'm talking about, he's the same type of man that you will find in St. Lucie, you will find in St. Michael Northwest, you will find in Christchurch, any constituency. But I could not understand how comes there's this shift. I have no problem, we have no problem with the yachting business being stimulated, but the concerns, what strike me, and when that honourable member, the Minister of Finance, spoke on this matter, he spoke with some delight, you know, like a little child, you know, getting some candies, how he was so impressed by this former senator. I mean, and I wouldn't like to tell him that that former senator, that the grandfather of that same former senator would probably not be speaking to his grandfather. Now that is a subject for another forum. And I'm not saying that those wealthy landowners, those wealthy yachts people, I deal with them on a daily basis, are not people that we should have some concern for. But you should have equal concern, more concern for the people that you interact with on a daily basis. I mean that. I mean, as the man, as this gentleman was speaking to me, it brought tears. I mean, real tears to my eyes, because even if I didn't want to cry, he was crying. He was crying. This man was crying, and I don't like to see big people cry like that. And, you know, I had to ask myself, what can I do to help this gentleman? And when I look at the budgetary proposals, you realize that there was a pattern playing against him. The economy was doing well. He had his mutual funds, credit savings in the credit unions, and he was being given tax credit for all of those things. Improvements when the year came, all of those things were taken away. And you know, we talk about, we all remember for St. Michael, for St. James, South, my parliamentarian, gave probably the worst presentation that I've ever heard in this house, because he spoke as though he was on some mountain top. And when he talked about education, if you have to deal with certain things, he will tell his constituents this and he will tell his constituents that. But you have to prep and prepare your constituents for certain things. These changes in the educational system were made abruptly. People had their children in at university, and all of a sudden, they had to make adjustments. People were living from month to month. I had to make adjustments all of a sudden. And this man was in that boat. And I think that if the Minister of Finance had thought this thing through, and he had allowed, seeing that you were taking away the tax credits with respect to the mutual funds and the savings from the credit unions, and he had allowed, and I don't see anything wrong with that, allowed the tax credit for the full university education, I think that would have helped that man tremendously. It is still something that government needs to look at. Now, I know what I'm talking about. I have a daughter who went to university to do medicine. I applied for a student loan revolving fund, and it was turned down. Not my daughter. It was turned down. I don't know why. I don't know how a student could have to have a means test. I mean, this is also something that you should look at, that the government should look at. It was not so in the past. And I was told that, and I have the letter, and I can show the letter. My daughter going to med school, the only reason why she did not go to med school in the Caribbean was because of the fact that the applications came in late in the United States and in England and those places. You have a year ahead, you apply a year ahead. I mean, and I couldn't afford it, but I had to borrow money to send her. And she went to the Royal College of Surgeons, albeit when she came down here, the minister of, we could not even accommodate her for the internship in Barbados. But that is beside the point. That is beside the point. But you have take this gentleman now in a similar situation when those two children that he has at secondary school going off to university, he has had to call in his mutual funds to educate the first, to pay for the first two. I mean, Kadir, I mean, I know you come in with an amnesty, and you telling me that you have to use this amnesty off by January. And you should be seeing this man right in front of your eyes. But there's no way. There is no way that man could pay any arrears or interest or whatever. I mean, until about 5 or 10 years down the road. And that is if you have growth in the economy, and he can get back to work. And that is the Democratic Labour Party. That is this administration. And then you look at the question, I have mentioned CLICO. I mean, this government has no face with respect to CLICO, you know. How a Minister of Finance could come with a budget at this time, I mean, with what is going on with CLICO, I mean, the people, those investors and policyholders in CLICO are suffering. People were being paid pensions, the pensions have stopped. People want to know what is going on with respect to CLICO. Every time the minister brings something to this parliament, and he's going to come back again with the bonus issue. Right? He refuses to come back and update, give this parliament an update. But the situation with CLICO is so serious that you should be given a monthly update, if not by Parliament. And I think Parliament is the best place. And what is going on with CLICO? And you have people now, people who have died, and they have not got back their pensions. People want to know if in this arrangement, if they will get back their pensions, and if they get back their pensions, if the arrears will be paid. Now, Trinidad government arrested this situation almost immediately, and Parliament was kept abreast on a regular basis, and they had a minister specifically assigned, and the situation was arrested so quickly and so efficiently that now you have Mr. Dupré, the villain who is responsible for all of this, now wanting to petition the government, petition the government to get back. You heard that? He wants back the company because the Trinidadians were able to put it back on its feet. That could have happened in Barbados. We should have been kept abreast. You were dealing with a serious situation because the question of confidence is one. You could make all the changes now. You could get all of the licenses, put all the staff in place and everything else. And then you have this insurance company that has the face of Clico. But I don't know about you, Minister of Finance. Sorry, I don't know about the Minister of Finance. But I, for one, I would not recommend anybody to have any dealings with that company. And I mean, there are a lot of things that this minister need to tell us.
Honourable Member, you have 2 minutes left.
2 minutes. All of those things. What is the position with respect? To the new dealings with FLICO? The deadlines that you mentioned, that the Honourable Minister, mentioned, those deadlines have passed. Let us know about the new deadlines. The policyholders are in the same position as they were 6.5 years ago. Have the agreements been signed? Has the judicial manager supplied all of the documents and has done everything to ensure that the company is up and running? Now, I have my suspicion about the judicial manager, and I don't know him, but $13 million, and that is going to be taxpayers' money, has been paid to the judicial manager so far. $13 million, and in a short space of time. There's nobody in Barbados that I know work for that amount of money in such a short space of time. $13 million. And I have said already that we could have, it might look a little awkward. National Insurance could have been dealing with this matter, and in a roundabout way. And I believe that a lot of money could have been saved. But if not the National Insurance, some other entity could have 6.5 years ago. We want to know whether or not the investors' money and the monies and the policyholders, whether their money is still safe. The question with respect to the EC investors, because Ralph Gonzalez, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, had expressed some disquiet, and there is still disquiet with respect to the Barbados plan. And what is the position with respect to that? All of these things we need to know. Whether or not the people within the new insurance company have been recruited, when the company will start, when will those transfers be done? My understanding is that all of the agreements have been forwarded, even though there might be a few things that might not be quite proper with respect to the agreements.
Your time is up,
when all of this
Honourable
thing is done,
your time is up.
The legislation to deal,
Honourable
to make
Member.
sure that there is no recurrence and a proper investigation of what has transpired. And in addition to that, just bear with me just for a second, the shareholders in BICO who have been refused part of this whole arrangement, including a lot of the churches, and you are fully aware of that, whether or not their funds will be written off. I'm obliged to you.